Good evening again. Welcome to the 2024 Scotch Plains Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Union County Hawk newspaper. I'm Fred Rossi with the Hawk, and we're coming to you tonight from the historic clubhouse at the Shady Rest Golf and Country Club. November 5th, voters in town will select someone to serve a 4-year term as mayor, on the council, and also choose a mayor for the next 4 years. Tonight we'll hear first from the candidates for council, and then we'll talk with the 3 candidates for mayor. The format and ground rules are as follows. Questions will alternate between the candidates, with the candidate directly answering a question, having up to 2 minutes. Then the other candidates will each have 1 minute to reply. At the end of the Q&A, candidates will then have up to 3 minutes to deliver closing statements. Our timekeeper again is Lauren Barr, publisher of the Hawk. She'll signal candidates when 30 seconds are left, and then with a red card when time has expired. So keep Lauren in your sights, because I will cut you off if you run over. Tonight's program will follow the guidelines of decorum and debate set out by the League of Women Voters. That is, no personal attacks and a sticking to a discussion of the issues, not personalities. And again, to those in the room here, please keep it quiet. No cheering, no jeering, or otherwise disruptive noises. Let the candidates speak and talk about their issues. And make sure your phones are off again. So we'll begin with the candidates for council. They are Democrat Ellen Zimmerman and Republican Brian Jodos. Coin toss has determined that Mr. Jodos will answer the first question tonight, and Mrs. Zimmerman will deliver the final closing statement. So if you guys are ready for a little bit of deja vu, we will get to the first question for Mr. Jodos. Downtown redevelopment has been at the top of the council's agenda for almost 8 years. Several private projects are getting underway, but the redevelopment of the public properties is still some time away. So are you satisfied with the pace of downtown revitalization? 2 minutes.
Good evening, Fred, and good evening to everyone. I want to say that with any downtown redevelopment plan, there has to be complete transparency. One thing I really am a proponent of. The one thing I will add is that the delays that have been caused over the last 8 years, costs have gone up. The DEP flooding issue has caused a delay in the construction of it. We have a minimum amount of landscape for downtown redevelopment. But the one thing that I'm really concerned about is that our downtown redevelopment committee hasn't met in months. We need to have our public input.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman. 1 minute.
Thank you, Fred. When reviewing this project, lessening the burden on our taxpayers is the bottom line. Our taxpayers' bottom line is our #1 priority with this and every project we embark on. We want to get it right. And we're probably the largest, this is probably the largest project in Scotch Plains history, and will be for years and years to come. Relocating the library, town hall, police, fire, and rescue squad. We've been taking steps over the last 4 years after the last administration was seeking a resolution with the developer, but the developer wouldn't build what the downtown committee wanted. We worked on a development plan with the committee. We put RFPs out and received 11 proposals. We've chosen a developer, Woodmont, and we are now working with the DEP to make sure we are in compliance with their new regulations. During this time, we've been working to secure funding. We've got $10 million in grants.
Time's up. I'm sorry, time's up.
Thank you.
Next question goes back to you, Mrs. Zimmerman, for 2 minutes. Why do you think that the Plainfield Avenue site across from the Public Works building is the best spot for the new first responders headquarters?
Thank you, Fred. When I first came into office 4 years ago, that was something that was of utmost importance to me. And I met with many township officials, including our deputy fire chief, to understand the scope of the project and the location. During that time, we've really exhausted, we asked our administration to really, in our development team, to really look into any other possibilities. This is public land, and any private land would cost more money, and we would lose that tax base. And beyond that, beyond it being the right location as far as it being public land, in learning that the response time from our from our first responders at this location is key. There's many positive aspects on their ability to be able to respond to other parts of town that right now are even more difficult to get to from their current locations.
Okay, Mr. Jodas, 1 minute.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing issue, and I keep going back to the affordability of these projects. I think the valuations for the construction costs are severely undervalued. We really need to make sure there's an affordability issue so we do protect our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Jodas. Last year, voters rejected a plan to install artificial turf at the Brookside Park baseball field. The amount of available space in town is pretty limited these days, and in the coming years, it's likely we're going to see a big influx of new residents and kids. So what sorts of ideas do you have to expand the availability of playing fields?
Yeah, so there is going to be a shortage of playing fields, and the adequate fields and the safe practices of fields for our children is obviously important to all of us. We need to work with our community to see where we can come up, building new fields, having these kids have a safe place to play with. I played sports throughout this town growing up, so it is important to me.
Okay, Mrs. Zimmerman, 1 minute.
As a parent and having been raised kids in the past 25 years here, there is no greater joy than sitting on the sidelines and watching your child play. And that first goal, that first basket, okay, I don't know my sports, but you get the idea. But watching kids play from the sidelines gives us great joy. And the number one complaint that I've heard as a parent and that I've heard over the last 4 years is that our kids don't have enough places to play. We've been working with the county to add parking to Ponderosa to improve the viability of that field and everything at Ponderosa. And as part of the pilot negotiation for the old Parker Gardens, a current Orchid Park, we have acquired 2.5 acres that is going to be built as a playing field, as a practice field, or maybe both. They're still relying on the Recreation Commission to take a look at that. But just yesterday we were there and saw that field, and it is opening.
Thank you. Mrs. Zimmerman, this question's for you. Between 16 and 17% of our property tax dollars go to Union County. Are you satisfied that Scotch Plains is getting its tax money's worth back from the county government?
Thank you, Fred. Yes, 16%, as you mentioned, does go to the county. 14% comes to the municipality, and almost 65% goes to the school district. In working with the county, I do think we have partnered well with the county. The county partnered with us in grants to help us build the new playground at Greenside Park. As I just mentioned, Ponderosa, they're working on parking there to help alleviate the pressure of that field. And there is a park going in on Route 22 off of Glenside. So I do think that the county is really coming to us and working with us on these programs. And we will look for any opportunity to partner, whether it's the county or any other town.
And Mr. Jodas, 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't know why we haven't been partnering with our towns thus far. For the last 2 years, we have zero revenue from our shared services. That would really help bring new revenue into our town. That's one thing that, day one, we were going to look into and get it done.
Thank you. The next question goes to Mr. Jodas. As a candidate for council 2 years ago, you accused the governing body of selling out to the marijuana lobby when it approved cannabis sales. Do you still feel that way? 2 minutes.
So I think the revenue that we're receiving from the cannabis sales is insignificant. 2% on a projected $5 million is going to yield a net of $100,000. For the 5 cannabis dispensaries that we currently have, I don't think it is the right play.
Mrs. Zimmerman, 1 minute.
Thank you. And before I go back to that, I just wanted to comment on zero revenue from shared services. Actually, in fact, we have services that we do partner with. We do Mountainside, we do street sweeping for them, and fire inspections, both of which they pay us for. And we have a partnership with Westfield that we share leaf storage. So there is revenue coming in from those towns. As far as cannabis, there's 4 dispensaries, not 5 dispensaries, And we budgeted, I think the 2% revenue is pretty significant. We budgeted $150,000 annually, but already for 2024 anticipate close to $200,000. So we're already well above budget just for the first year. So I think that's a pretty significant revenue that the town wasn't having before.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Zimmerman gets this question. Well, speak of the devil. One way the local government has cut costs is through various shared services arrangements. Are there any other areas that you think might provide opportunities for shared services?
Thank you, Fred. You know, at the risk of repeating, we really are always looking for opportunities to share services with other towns. As I mentioned, the county, I mentioned all of the parks and the way they've partnered with us. We also share equipment and salt purchase with the county. I mentioned Mountainside and both Westfield already. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jodas, 1 minute.
Yeah, we could be doing more with shared services. And just to go back to Ellen for 2 seconds, there's $0 listed as a line item for revenue from shared services. So, I mean, I don't know if that was a glitch, but over the last 2 years, there's zero revenue reported from shared services. So back to that, I want to increase our shared services and working with our neighboring towns.
Okay. This question is from Mr. Jodos. What ideas do you have for enhancing programs and services for the seniors in town?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, our senior citizens are very important to us and my team. We need to work with them to see where we're lacking in our programs, our commitment to them. The one thing I want to say is, you know, I don't think we're paying as much attention as we should. Over the summer, they were without five weeks without AC during the dead of summer. We have to have a commitment to them and make sure that we're doing everything we can to support them.
And Mrs. Zimmerman, 1 minute.
Well, I just want to address the 5 weeks without AC. I think Mr. Jodas is referring to senior housing. And senior housing is a private corporation that's run by a board of directors, so it is a private entity. It's not necessarily part of Scotch Plains. It is located in Scotch Plains, and I understand the confusion. From my understanding, that problem was fixed actually pretty quickly, and during that time, there was air conditioner in the common areas. It was just some of the other areas, and I think the ice cream truck was brought in, and I think housing did a pretty significant fix on that. But I want to address in my quick 30 seconds what we've done for our seniors in Scotch Plains, because I am the liaison to the Senior Advisory Committee, and really we've enhanced our programming based on feedback that we've received from our 2 different surveys over the past 4 years. We've sent full buses to 4 different trips in 2023 and 2024. Our senior soiree and our holiday party have been at capacity for the past 2 years, and we've added senior yoga, line dancing, Zumba, and much, much more.
Thank you. Well, you guys are very efficient with your words, so we are done with the questions, and we're going to move on to closing statements. Each of you will have up to 3 minutes, and the first up is Mr. Jodas.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you to my parents and my fellow supporters. And thank you for allowing me the time to speak to everyone. As a lifelong resident with deep roots, I know the value that Scotch Plains can offer all of us. And people ask me, you know, what drives you? What gets you more involved? And for me, it's simple. It's like I want to bring back basic politics to everyone. Listening to our residents, making common sense improvements, and ensuring a safe town for everyone, especially, you know, our taxpayers. As someone with a business background, a security background, I bring a wide array of skills to the table. I will work hard for Scotch Plains and make sure it's a place that fits everyone, and making sure it's a place that people want to visit to support our downtown businesses, who I'm a huge proponent of. So if you want someone with new ideas and get away from one-party rule, vote Brian Jones on November 5th. And thank you again, Fred.
Great. And Mrs. Zimmerman, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Fred. Is that right? Okay. Serving on the Scotch Plains Township Council these past 4 years has been an even more amazing experience than I could have imagined. I have enjoyed every resident, and I have had the honor of meeting, working with, and getting to know. If re-elected, I will continue to meet and talk to as many residents as I can. I will continue to work hard with respect, honesty, and integrity, and work with each member of our community to continue making Scotch Plains the best place to live. There are so many important parts of the work we do on Town Council, and so much to be proud of. I am proud of the efforts we have put into working with our recreation to enhance our parks and our senior programs. I am proud of our collaboration with our first responders who work tirelessly to ensure the safety and security of our residents. I am proud to work alongside Josh Lusardo and an amazing team who daily exhibit selflessness and compassion for each resident in the decisions we make. Over the past 4 years, I have learned quickly that it is hard to make everyone happy. I view my role as one that represents the will of the majority of the community. I have not taken that role lightly. I listen, research, and assess the community issues and opinions, but I also recognize that there is a person on the other side of the decision, and sometimes that person may be frustrated. But I am always available to listen and will do my best to meet our residents' needs. I want to thank my opponent, Brian Jodas, for joining me in tonight's debate, and I want to thank Fred Rossi and the Union County Hawk for bringing tonight to our community. My husband Josh and I have raised 3 kids in this town, Allison, Kelly, and Jeremy. We feel fortunate to have educated them in our invaluable public school system, and we all have such close connections to the friends and memories we have made in Scotch Plains. We are proud to call Scotch Plains home, and if elected for 4 more years, my goal is to make sure that all of our residents and their children are proud to call Scotch Plains home. This election and the future of our town matter very deeply to me, but there are other races on the ballot November 5th that will have a profound impact on our lives, but more importantly, the lives of our children and grandchildren. Democracy is on the ballot. I am asking you to vote for Kamala Harris all the way down to Josh Lusardo and Ellen Zimmerman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Ellen Zimmerman and Brian Jodas for taking part tonight. We're going to take a little break, get the mayoral candidates up here and settled, and then we'll talk with them. So, thank you. Okay, welcome back. Let's welcome the 3 candidates for mayor. They are Republican Chris Kresge, Democrat Joshua Lusardo, and Vester Howard, the independent candidate. The ground rules are the same: 2 minutes for a direct answer and 1 minute each for the other candidates to respond. Closing statements will be 3 minutes too. I couldn't think of a simple way to do a coin toss with 3 candidates, so we're going to proceed in alphabetical order by first name, as we did 8 years ago when we had 3 candidates for mayor. So the first question will go to Mr. Kresge, who will have 2 minutes. Downtown redevelopment has been priority number 1 for the town council for almost 8 years now. Few private projects are getting underway, but not the redevelopment of the public properties yet. So are you satisfied with the pace of downtown revitalization? 2 minutes.
Thanks, Fred. No, I mean, quite frankly, no. I mean, this plan has been in effect, I think, since 2018. We're now far along the way, right? So I think it's a very complicated issue, and I don't think a lot of the voters in Scotch Plains know the gravity and all the intricacies of the actual plan. You know, one of the things is, you know, there's a 300 units to be set downtown. I think that, you know, I think a lot of people will push back right now. They're already complaining on overcrowdedness. I do 100% think that, you know, the town has to be redeveloped downtown. But I don't know the plan right now. I think it needs a new set of eyes. I think, you know, with me being on board, Brian being on board, it needs to have a new look. It's been 2 years since I think the redevelopment committee has been meeting about it. So I think at this point, to answer your question, it has taken too long. It needs a fresh new set of eyes looking at it, and people really need to know all the details in the downtown redevelopment.
Mr. Lusardo, you get 1 minute.
Thank you, Fred. I am quite satisfied with the pace of downtown redevelopment. The pace is taking, it is what it is for a few simple reasons. 4 years ago, we had a developer that would not build what Scotch Plains wanted built. We had a developer that wanted to take control of the downtown not replace the parking that exists in the downtown. And so we really had to start over. We had to write a redevelopment plan that was based on what the Downtown Redevelopment Committee worked on for so long. Then we had to issue requests for proposals, and we received 11 responses to those proposals, and then we reviewed each one of those proposals carefully and chose Woodmont Properties. And then what happened? The DEP changed their rules, and more of Scotch Plains went into the floodplain, and that further slowed us down. But if we had started 4 years ago, we would have a downtown that the Downtown Redevelopment Committee did not want, and what residents did not want.
I'm just going to brief Mr. Howard. You came in late. The timekeeper is here, so when you have 30 seconds left, she'll hold up a yellow card and then red when time's up. So you get 1 minute.
Downtown redevelopment is taking entirely too long. You should have figured this out before you start doing it. You built the Lino in the flood zone. That Lino's an eyesore. That's the first thing people see when they come into Scotch Plains.
Okay, the next question goes to Mr. Lusardo. The downtown redevelopment plan calls for a few hundred apartments as well as new commercial space. How confident are you that all these units will be occupied, especially if the economy were to falter?
I think no one can tell the future, so we don't know exactly what will happen, but we see developments throughout New Jersey, and they're full. The developments in Scotch Plains, the biggest ones that opened recently, Glenside and Parker Gardens, as Ms. Zimmerman shared before, we were at the Orchard Park just yesterday to welcome a new park in town. We were speaking with the developer who said he is extremely pleased how those units are being rented. And Woodmont Properties, who we're partnering with on downtown, is confident as well that they will rent the commercial space and the units above. And I'll just take a second, if I have a little time, to remind the viewers, Lidl replaced Snuffy's. Private property, it is on the edge of town, but private property, the township could not get in the way of a private transaction. And we look forward to Lidl resolving their stormwater issues and building in downtown Scotch Plains and bringing a supermarket to downtown Scotch Plains. And if I have a few seconds more, I'll share about the Downtown Redevelopment Committee. I'm grateful to the members of that committee that spent countless hours and met every month on Wednesday nights for years and gave us the information because they put in the time so that we can write a redevelopment plan. Once that plan was written, their job was concluded. It's now working with internally to make sure that the project that goes forward matches what the redevelopment committee sought.
Mr. Howard, you have 1 minute. The downtown redevelopment plan calls for a few hundred apartments as well as new commercial space. How confident are you that all these units will be occupied, especially if the economy goes south?
I'm not confident because if the economy goes south, how can they occupy the space? If you can't afford it, how can you live there?
Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
Yeah, so I don't think whether I'm confident or not that it's going to be filled or not. You know, the vacancies. What I'm more concerned about is 300 units being placed downtown. You know, between traffic, between parking. Again, the town is, you know, on my campaigns, the people have come to me and they've said, you know, they don't want any more of these high-rises going up in Scotch Plains. It's killing the, you know, the aesthetics of the town. It's why they moved to Scotch Plains, right? And I just think, you know, whether it's vacant or not, you know, vacant would be terrible, but I just think it has to be a new set of eyes to look at it and say, I don't know if this is the right plan for Scotch Plains for downtown.
Okay. The next question is for Mr. Howard. Do you think that the Plainfield Avenue site across from the Public Works Department is the best spot for the new first responders headquarters?
No, I think we need to combine our first responders with other towns, like Fanwood, the police department, and things like that.
All right, Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm okay with the location. I mean, it's already a done deal. I mean, one of the issues moving forward, I think the community needs to be transparency, let them know how we're moving forward with it. It's fine, it's there now, and but let's just, get the word out to the public and, let them know about the plan moving forward.
Okay, and Mr. Lusardo, 1 minute.
Every council meeting, when there's an update, we update the community with the progress that we're making on downtown redevelopment. We like Plainfield Avenue because it's been in the spot for many years. It's more centrally located in town than the existing Northside Firehouse and the police station. Response time will be, for emergency workers, will be much faster from that location. It's town land, so there's no cost to acquire that land. And the project that we're putting in the downtown, that calls for approximately 350 units. I'd like to remind the viewers what we did was reduce the size of the downtown project. Previously, it was called for 6 stories. We're looking at 4.5. Previously, it was called for 440 units. When we could not reach a deal with the former developer, we maximized the units at 350. So this is a smaller project that fits in Scotch Plains much better than the prior project, and will also allow us to preserve the neighborhoods that surround downtown, because we must comply with our affordable housing obligations.
Okay. Mr. Kresge, you get the next question. Affordable housing is a big and court-mandated part of all the new apartments being built. Multi-story apartment buildings have gone up all along North and South Avenue from Elizabeth to Plainfield, and the next round of affordable housing obligations will be released soon. So where are we going to put all this new housing, and do you support those towns that have filed a lawsuit to put a stop to all this new housing?
Well, apparently we're putting them downtown, right? I mean, so no. So the review is coming back up in 2025 next year, where we initially met from 2018. A lot has changed since then, right? The flood zones have changed. Our town has gotten increasingly more populated and moving upwards. Our town is really maximizing. You saw this. We just had. The vote on we need additional schooling. That's the growth in population coming. So look, moving forward, I do support the towns that fought back. You have to fight back, right? This town needs a strong leader, someone that's going to stand behind the community. I hear it day in and day out from the people. They don't want any more of this housing. It's a mandate from Trenton. I get it. Our hands are tied with certain aspects of this, but it doesn't mean you just lay down and let it happen. You fight, you put together a team, put together a group of experts, and we have to push back, because it's not feasible in this town at this point.
Mr. Lusardo, 1 minute.
We decided as a council not to join the lawsuit, not to throw taxpayer money at the lawsuit, because all those lawsuits challenging affordable housing in New Jersey have failed. If the lawsuits happen to be successful, we'll benefit from that. But instead, what we're doing is staying in control of our town. We're reducing these projects. Parker Gardens, for instance, was reduced almost, I think it was over 100 units less than what it was originally proposed, because Scotch Plains stayed in control. The schools are overcrowded, but they've been overcrowded for over 20 years. It's not a product, of the affordable housing in Scotch Plains now. They've been overcrowded for a long time. It's just more obvious than ever that the town's going to continue to grow, and that the schools need to do something about that. And Scotch Plains is responsible to put forward a new housing element. We have to tell Trenton where we're going to put additional affordable housing by June of 2025. If we don't put those units in the downtown, our neighborhoods will change, and we don't want those neighborhoods to change, and that's why we're working on the existing project.
Okay, and Mr. Howard, 1 minute.
Construction can handle any more affordable housing. I think we need to keep it the way it is.
The next question is for Mr. Lusardo. One of the tools in the township's redevelopment toolbox is the use of pilots, the payments in lieu of taxes that a developer pays to the township, with most of that money going directly to the town to keep. Normally, about 2/3 of regular property tax payments go to the Board of Ed. What kind of effects are pilots having on the school district, especially if projections of increased enrollments come to fruition? And do you think the Board of Ed should have some say in how and if pilots are used in new housing projects?
No, I don't think the Board of Education should have that discretion. They don't ask us how to spend the money that they collect. I'll remind viewers, they collect 66, in 2024, collected 66 cents out of $1 of your property taxes. The town collected 14 cents. The Board of Education has over $100 million every year to run their schools and do what they need to do. I don't get in their way, and I would ask the schools not to get in my way. Pilots are a tremendous help to the township. The pilot money, that is correct, Fred. The pilot money is shared between the municipality. We get about 95% of that revenue, and the county gets 5%. And with that money, we're able to negotiate with developers, reduce the size of their projects. We're able to require quality workmanship and materials in those projects so that the buildings being built in Scotch Plains will be buildings that should be built in Scotch Plains. Absolutely beautiful buildings with high quality workmanship. Our project will lead us to building a new library, town hall, and emergency services building. Those projects are expensive projects. The pilot money will reduce our reliance on taxpayers to pay the costs of that construction. We have been earmarking the pilot revenue for future projects, not putting that revenue in our budget so that it is available when we build the emergency services building on Plainfield Avenue and the library and town hall in downtown Scotch Plains.
Mr. Howard, here, 1 minute.
As far as the library goes, we can hook up with Fanwood and share the library, like consolidate, because we consolidate the schools with them, so why can't we share the library? It's a sensible thing.
And Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
Yeah, I agree with Josh. You know, the Board of Education has their budget, the town municipality has their budget, so there's no reason to, and we have a lot of expenses as it was just laid out. So I think the way it's structured now is fine by me. What I would say is this, though, even though, we're running parallel budgets, there's no reason that we can't have open dialogue to see where there may be some, issues that we can help one another on. I wouldn't completely cut it off, but in terms of monies going their way, look, I'm open for dialogue to see what the proposal is and how we may be able to assist one another.
Okay, one final question on redevelopment to Mr. Howard first. Should township residents believe that all of the planned redevelopment can be achieved without any significant cost to the taxpayer?
No, they shouldn't. Like I said, it's taken forever, and they've been paying taxes. So why would it be any different with this current plan?
Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's a major project, right? You have to sell and move the municipal building, the library, the fire department. You have to construct. Now you have to rebuild these three structures. Cost, inflation, everything's gone up over the past 3 or 4 years since this project's been started. I mean, I don't think it's out of question to say that the taxpayers are somehow going to pay for this, at this point.
Mr. Lasardo, 1 minute.
That is something I have never said, and distinguishes me from the former mayor on this particular topic. We're doing everything possible to reduce the potential shortfall and reduce the liability that may ultimately fall to the taxpayers. We're earmarking the pilot money for these projects. We are selling the land that will lead to tremendous revenue that we will put towards these projects. We've worked with our federal and state representatives to get grants, and we've received almost $10 million in grants over the last 4 years that we can put towards these projects. We're continuing to lobby for more grants. We will continue to do everything possible to make that potential tax tax on the taxpayers as little as we possibly can. And I'll share, I agree, I wish we could share a library and other services with our other towns. We were always actively pursuing that, and I'm open to an open dialogue with the schools. If they, I've spoken with the schools about potentially doing work on their fields, and if they were open to that, we may use some of the pilot money for that.
Okay, moving on to a few other topics. Mr. Kresge, your campaign in a recent video says the administration has lost touch with the residents. How so?
So what I was referring to is the Brookside Park turf issue. You know, look, the community got together. They did not want turf fields. It was apparently, you know, it was apparently set without their input, right? We saw this firsthand. A referendum came up. 75% of the people voted against it. Transparency, inclusion, community-based administration is what I'm pushing for if I get elected as mayor. Things like that won't happen.
Mr. Lusardo, 1 minute.
I'm sorry, Fred. Mr. Rossi, the question is about, if you would repose the question, please.
Yeah, Mr. Kresge's campaign in a video said the administration has lost touch with the residents. How so?
Obviously, I don't agree with that at all. We have, I think, a good relationship with our residents. We have our meetings. We invite residents to meet with us outside of our meetings so that we can have open and long dialogues that we can't have in an open meeting. The referendum and the Brookside matter was only after numerous public hearings before our Recreation Commission, and thereafter numerous public hearings before the Town Council. My colleagues and I sat through hours and hours and hours of testimony by concerned residents that thought we were making a mistake by supporting the Rec Commission's recommendation to add a new field to Brookside Park. At the same time, I was speaking with residents that weren't making those meetings, oftentimes because they had young children at home, advocating that we make that we fund that project so that they wouldn't have to travel away from Scotch Plains to practice their games or go to or play their sports.
Okay. Mr. Howard, 1 minute.
A few years ago, the taxpayers paid $100,000 for a survey to be conducted on what to do with the fields, and you clearly haven't been following it. The master plan. We need to go back to it.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question for Mr. Lusardo. In the previous council round, we talked about the Brookside Park baseball field, and with the amount of space in town limited, what sorts of ideas do you have to expand playing fields for the baseball, soccer, lacrosse kids leagues?
To continue in order to do that, we're going to have to continue working with our Recreation Commission. That is a group of residents in town, nonpartisan, not chosen by the council, but chosen by the town manager to dedicate themselves how to make Scotch Plains better with recreational programs and parks. What I have said and what my colleague Councilman Matt Adams has said as the liaison to recreation is to think big. As a council, we have invested more in our parks and more in our recreation than in any administration prior to now. We are doing everything we can to maximize play, and our recreation commissioners know that they will have our support if they put forward a careful plan that has been through public hearings before the Recreation Commission, well thought out plans, and that will lead us to, I expect, modernizing other parks such as Jerseyland. This year we're doing Kramer Manor and Brookside Park and Haven Park, and we will continue to look for other opportunities. The Parker Gardens field will be a terrific field for young children. That's going to come to town, that's coming to town soon, and we have been working with the county to maximize use of Ponderosa Field and Votech. The county has agreed to add parking to Ponderosa so that that field can handle more traffic on a given day, and the county is working with us to modernize the field at Votech to make the Votech field more playable for a variety of sports. And having that field right in the heart of Scotch Plains will make a really big difference. We are also specifically me, working with the Board of speaking with the Board of Education and advocating that they improve their fields so that town residents can benefit from that. Councilman Adams as well has been actively looking to have additional sit-downs with them, and we anticipate that we will work closely together and improve our fields moving forward.
Okay. Right under the gun, okay. Mr. Howard, 1 minute. Okay. Mr. Kresge?
Yeah, it's an issue. So I coach, I have two boys, 9 and 11, coach football, basketball. You know, it is a problem. I think Josh brought up a point that we have to explore where we have to start working with the Board of Education right now. My 5th grade and 6th grade and 4th grade football team, we practice at the high school. We're now going to we are going to start practicing at Nettingham as well. I think we have to start looking at those fields as an option. I think one of the ideas, you know, moving forward is that people never talk about a community center in the sense of basketball courts, multi-purpose area, you know, whatever you can do in a large area there. You know, we do need fields, but we also need basketball courts. I was just, again, my 4th grade team, we're short on court time right now because there aren't enough spaces. So I think community center, basketball court, something of that nature needs to be explored immediately, and I will.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Howard, next question for you. What ideas do you have for more programs for senior citizens? And should Scotch Plains consider building a senior citizen center?
Yeah, they should consider building a senior citizen center because Scotch Plains Senior Housing is on the other side, but the other candidates, I don't recall them ever visiting. They act like the place doesn't exist. So I want to integrate them with the people from Shady Rest so they can do activities and bring more activities in there.
Thank you. Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
So it's a good point, Vester. I think, you know, my father's here, and I don't want to call him out and call him a senior citizen, but I want him to stay in town, and I want him to be happy. You know, so I think anything we can do to, you know, increase the activity level of the entire community is what I'm all for. You know, I heard Ellen talk about the various events that the current administration is putting on. I think we can always do more. I think their input is paramount, and I would love to see, you know, it always helps a community if that generation can stay here and thrive.
Losardo, 1 minute.
Thank you, Fred. Back to the prior question, I just would like to remind Mr. Kresge, you can look forward to playing basketball at Haven Park and at Brookside when we modernize those parks later next year.
But not in the wintertime, during school.
Right.
It's hard in
And
the
Scotch
wintertime.
Plains is lucky to have the Y and the JCC to play indoors right now, and we've spoken with the Evangel Church about building a community center there. As for seniors and a senior center, we currently don't have plans to do that, but we're open-minded, and if the opportunity presents itself and it makes sense, we may change our mind and do that. But what we are working on is a library with a large community room that we can use for projects and recreational activities for residents of all ages, and we've thought that we don't want to isolate our seniors. We don't want to just have a location where seniors go, that it would be better to have a community center where we can have activities for residents of all ages so that seniors could learn from young people, and more so, young people can learn from the older folks that have been in this town for so long.
Okay. Next question goes to Mr. Kresge. One of your campaign flyers says that your team wants to, quote, prioritize fiscal responsibility. So has this administration been fiscally responsible, and what ideas do you have for keeping property taxes under control?
So we've heard a lot about taxes have stayed flat or a slight raise. You know, if your house increases by 8%, you cannot raise taxes by 8% and call that flat. You're still, you know, getting charged an extra 8%. It just doesn't work that way. Excuse me. So, you know, I think all options should be looked at in terms of, how we can lower the tax rate here. As we mentioned, anything that we can do downtown with the redevelopment, how that would bring in new business. I think we have to start looking at the other towns, how their tax revenues come in. And, if you look at our downtown, East 2nd Street, we are missing a lot of opportunities for tax revenue. The cannabis issue came up. We've already discussed that it's generated, or it's going to generate, projecting $100,000 to $200,000. That's actually pretty low, we think. Would those spaces be better utilized with other businesses that could give us more tax revenue?
Mr. Lusardo, 1 minute for you.
I don't know of any other business that we would be entitled to revenue other than cannabis. And I think $200,000 in a budget of our size is a tremendous help to the township. If we have a project that we need $100,000 on, that's about a 1% increase to our taxpayers. So $200,000 or more is a tremendous help. The municipality here, we are 14% of your property taxes. That is the lowest in Union County and maybe the lowest in all of New Jersey. And we have a AAA bond rating that the town has been able to retain for more than 6 years. And that is an independent analysis of our finances, where they know our finances are extremely strong. And on East 2nd Street, there's been development on East 2nd Street. Private development, Elite Properties is putting forward a new building now. Quick Check has replaced the Chinese restaurant that existed for a long time. You're seeing development, and the township will benefit from those developments.
Okay. Mr. Howard, 1 minute.
Or you rent.
Mr. Lusardo, this next question is for you. 4 years ago, the mayoral campaign was held amidst the COVID pandemic, with schools and businesses shut and most of us stuck in the house. I recall our debate 4 years ago was me and the 4 candidates in a room, and that was it. What lessons were learned during that long shutdown, and is it prudent to plan for something similar in the future, be it another pandemic or another storm that results in very serious flooding like we saw 3 years ago?
I think the biggest lesson learned from the administration was that our administration can handle the town's business in a smaller space, and that's why we changed tune, and we're putting our town hall, our new town hall that we're going to build, in the same building with a library. We don't need as much space as we have right now to run the town's business. We've also just opened up a new ambulance service in Scotch Plains to handle emergencies. We have, over the last 4 years, we have taken steps to make sure our town has the resources it needs in the event that there's an emergency. And I'll leave it at that. I remember that debate. It was quite fun, Fred.
Yeah. Mr. Howard, 1 minute.
You could help the fire department improve their response time. It shouldn't take them 15 minutes to get to a fire. That's ridiculous.
Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
We live in, turbulent times right now. I mean, prayers and thoughts for everyone in Florida right now with Hurricane Milton. I mean, this has kind of become the new normal here. These type of environmental happenings. So yes, to Josh's point, I think that, the town, the administration has to be at the ready for any type of extreme type of environmental impact on the community.
Okay. Final question goes to Mr. Howard. What ideas do you have for increasing shared services arrangements with other towns?
Like I said, combining the library, police department, things like that.
Okay. And Mr. Kresge, 1 minute.
So I heard Ellen speak before about the various shared services we have now with other towns. Why not Fanwood? I feel that, it's Scotch Plains Fanwood. We're one and the same. First day, I would reach out to the mayor and see where we can work together. We share ball fields, we share obviously proximity, schools, etc. I think the solution is right next door, and if Colleen is watching, I like to reach out to her. Please call me at any time, and I'd love to talk about some shared services that we can accomplish together and help both communities.
And Mr. Lusardo, last word.
The town council is open to every opportunity that can reduce our costs. Particularly with Fanwood, we're working with Fanwood to potentially share a court. We're hoping not to have to build a new court in Scotch Plains when the downtown plan comes to fruition, and instead put our court in Fanwood. We are open, and the Fanwood knows this, that we are open to a dialogue so that we can explore other opportunities as well. We meet quarterly with Fanwood and the Board of Education so that we can maximize, so that we all know what's going on in our respective fields, and that we can work more closely together and share services and share costs as much as possible, because at the end of the day, our residents are paying, both the Board of Education and Scotch Plains, and Fanwood residents, obviously, for Fanwood.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move on to closing statements. Each of you will have up to 3 minutes. And first up is Mr. Kresge.
Thank you. I first want to thank Josh Vester. It's been great getting to know both of you. I also want to thank Fred. Thank you for hosting and moderating as well. I'm honored to be in this position and representing the Republican Party as candidate for mayor of Scotch Plains. The experience to date has been amazing. I've met so many people who are truly committed and want to be engaged in the process. Brian and I from the start have always stayed the course to our narrative, which is we are listening. We entered this race to create a more balanced city government, also one with more community input. My wife and I are lifelong residents and care deeply about the town. Our children are part of the school system and members of numerous groups and sports teams. All the issues discussed tonight affect me and my family daily and directly. This is an amazing town, we all know this, and every resident has their own reason for why they chose to live here, work here, and raise their families here. My goal as mayor is to keep an open dialogue between my administration and the community with more engagement and more transparency. We have seen the community rise up and vote down several initiatives. I feel with more community engagement and information earlier in the process, we could have avoided these referendums. My working career as an IT consultant has professionally trained me for this exact job as mayor. You listen to the problem, you bring the necessary experts, and you make sure your clients, and in this case, the constituents, are satisfied with the results. Communication is everything. I want to see a vibrant, business-friendly downtown. I no longer want to see our residents having to go to neighboring towns for dinner, entertainment, and other services. Lastly, I want to encourage a more unified community, all working together based on a common sense and pride in this town. In the end, I want to give a voice to the residents of Scotch Plains. Thank you.
Is Mr. Lusardo.
There are no rebuttals on closing statements, right, Fred? Good evening, and thank you for watching tonight's debate. I also want to thank Brian Jodos, Chris Kresge, and Vester Howard. Regardless of the outcome of this election, I thank each of you for stepping forward, and I look forward to working with you either way to make Scotch Plains an even better place to live. And thank you, as always, Fred Rossi, our moderator in the Union County Hawk. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope our debate demonstrated that Ellen Zimmerman and I have been impactful public servants, and that we have a strong plan to build on our successes over the next 4 years. We've brought so many positive changes to Scotch Plains that it's hard to list them all in just 3 minutes, but I'll speak even quicker than I'm speaking right now. The municipal tax, despite inflation, a pandemic, and the high cost of just about everything, has increased just 1% annually over the last 4 years. We have reduced the municipal debt, saving on interest over the last 4 years. We've maintained a AAA bond rating, the highest rating available, and a rare feat for municipalities. We've created the Scotch Plains Ambulance Service, and we have invested heavily in crime-fighting technologies. Working with our Recreation Commission, we have invested more money in our parks than any time in the town's history. You can see the amazing changes all over town. We righted a glaring wrong by restoring the original name, Shady Rest Country Club, to this building, our historic municipal golf course, the first African-American owned and operated country club in the United States. And we have set a realistic, responsible, and prudent course to revitalize our downtown while complying with the state's affordable housing requirements. We have preserved the Scotch Plains that our long-time residents know and love while welcoming every new resident with open arms. We will celebrate Diwali on the Village Green next week, Pride once again in June, and Christmas and Hanukkah in December, among many other events throughout the year. I am so very proud of our accomplishments, not possible without the support, enthusiasm, and trust of our residents. And tonight, I humbly ask for your vote, as there is much more work planned. In a second term, our team will ensure that downtown Scotch Plains is transformed, fulfilling a vision that the town has worked on together for a very long time. Our town will grow safer. Our parks, fields, playgrounds will continue being modernized and improved, adding capacity wherever possible to serve our many teams and programs. We will continue to do more with less. We have proven that we are financially conservative, and that will certainly not change. We will continue leading with integrity, transparency, and a deep love for our hometown, where you and I are building our lives, watching our children grow up together, and ensuring that Scotch Plains only becomes more desirable with every coming year. For all these reasons and more, I humbly ask you to vote column A all the way. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from Mr. Howard.
First of all, I just want to thank the people from the ARC for bringing them here tonight. It means a lot to me. Secondly, I just want to thank the residents of Scotch Plains Senior Housing. I appreciate you guys. I won't let you guys down. Third off, I just want to say it was nice to be here. Thank my opponents. I will make this town more inclusive to all people. I will not leave anyone out, regardless of disability or anything else. I will make July prominent. You will take notice of July. You will celebrate it, just like you celebrate June. I'm the definition of inclusion. My platform does not cost the taxpayers any money, from my entrepreneurial program to my self-sustaining program. I have real transparency. I have an open door policy. You want to come talk to me, you come talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kresge, Mr. Lusardo, Mr. Howard. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Besides the elections here in town, there are races for the United States Senate, the House of Representatives, county commissioners, and the Board of Ed. And I think there's a presidential election, in case you haven't heard. Voters should be receiving their sample ballots later in the month in the mail, and those sample ballots will have your polling location printed on them. There's also plenty of information with regard to early voting, drop box locations, etc., on the Union County website at ucnj.org/BOE. So thank you again for the candidates for taking part, and thank you, Scotch Plains Television.